The House of Representatives has urged the National Center for Disease Control to put in place measures that will stop the further spread of anthrax. The Green Chamber also urged the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to collaborate with relevant stakeholders to implement effective surveillance, vaccination and awareness campaigns to contain the outbreak.
The House also adopted a motion urging the Ministry of Aviation to collaborate with relevant healthcare professionals and organizations to establish and operate health check desks at airports across the country. The lawmakers also urged the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria (FAN) to put adequate medical facilities in Nigerian airports to forestall sudden death from high blood pressure and diabetes, among others.
The House notes the report of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development concerning the presence of anthrax in Nigeria. Also notes the laboratory tests conducted on the collected samples by the National Veterinary Research Institute, which confirmed the first report case at a livestock farm located in Gajiri village. To urge the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to collaborate with relevant stakeholders in implementing effective surveillance, vaccination and awareness campaigns to contain the outbreak and provide adequate resources and support to affected communities, including compensation for losses incurred due to the outbreak.
By establishing free health, high blood pressure and sugar level check desks at our airports, we can promote early detection and prevention care for conditions such as hypertension and diabetics. Regular monitoring of these vital health parameters will enable travelers to seek medical intervention and prevent potential complications. Also believe that the provision of these desks will demonstrate our commitment to public health promotion.
All right, let's speak to a professional on safety measures. The Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Dr. Ifedayo Asetifa, is joining us now in the studio. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Newsnight.
Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm a bit alarmed reading from NCDC that anthrax may be spreading across Nigeria. How bad is it? What exactly is this anthrax we're talking about? We need to start from there.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start by correcting the quote. We have not said anthrax is spreading throughout Nigeria.
Okay, great.
We have announced in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development that a case of animal anthrax has been diagnosed in Niger State, Nigeria. Okay, in a mixed livestock farm. Veterinary authorities were notified about 2 days earlier that there were animal deaths, suspicious animal deaths in the farm. They visited, implemented procedures, took samples for diagnosis, made diagnosis in 48 hours, and then, of course, we issued the joint warnings because anthrax, as you asked earlier, is caused by a bacteria. But that is it's a disease that is capable of infecting both animals and human beings. So one of those zoonotic illnesses, as we call them, another zoonotic illness that as we call them. So the history of the incidents in this farm is that there's a history of entry into that farm of new livestock. So the working hypothesis is that these were infected livestock that were brought into this farm and then infected other animals in that farm, leading to this case. Yes, anthrax is a serious disease when untreated, from both perspectives. One, it will kill livestock. This is an this is a food issue if you suddenly lose large numbers of livestock. So people's livelihoods and, of course, food and everything else gets threatened. On the human health side, it can also cause human disease, which is actually quite treatable, but if not detected early, then you can have severe disease, and then you can have bad outcomes.
When you say detected early, how early are you? Can we put a time frame on it? 24 hours, 48 hours, a week?
No, you can't put a rigid time frame to it. For a lot of conditions, early diagnosis means early institution of treatment. In the case of anthrax, we would prefer that you can make a diagnosis within a day or two.
What are the signs and symptoms to look out for?
It's better to make a diagnosis within a day or two, because part of the way anthrax, especially when it is inhaled, causes disease is that it releases toxins. Okay, which is a bit similar to diphtheria. So you need, if you leave toxin production going without neutralization, then you have a bigger hill to climb. Okay, that's okay, but its response to antibiotics. For people who are exposed to animals with confirmed diagnosis, there's the opportunity for preventive treatment with antibiotics as well.
Now, when you say that, we need to underscore the point that, look, hey, yes, you're hearing from the NCDC boss that antibiotics can take care of it, but just don't go to the pharmacy
not
to
just
pick
any
up
antibiotic.
any antibiotics. So, I mean, we needed to...
Not just any antibiotic, and you
that.
need to have exposure to a confirmed case. Thankfully, anthrax is not one of those sort of easy to transmit from person to person type of disease.
But then it still has signs and symptoms.
Yes, so
what are the signs and symptoms?
So there are three, or depending how you look at it, 4 types of ways anthrax can manifest in human beings. You can have a skin manifestation, which usually will be you have some blistering that are itchy, and then eventually the blisters go or collapse together, and then you have an ulcer. And typically that ulcer is a little deep and it has a really dark, crusty center. Okay, so that's cutaneous or skin anthrax. Now, the bacteria also exist as spores. So spores it's a form of the bacteria that is actually quite resistant to weather or adverse conditions. So it survives. This is part of what makes it survive a long time in the soil, because anthrax occurs normally in the soil. Now, those spores can be inhaled or they can be ingested. And following inhalation or ingestion, then they get activated in the body. It grows, it multiplies, and then causes symptoms. So that can be inhalational anthrax or gastrointestinal anthrax if you ingest it. Inhalational anthrax or gastrointestinal anthrax will still manifest first as an undifferentiated febrile illness. So it will you will have a fever, you will feel unwell, you may have rash, you may not have rash, you have muscle pains, headaches, and all of these things. So it is important, as we always say, not every fever is malaria. Fever can be Lassa fever, fever can be anthrax, fever can be, depending on your exposure and where you are at the time that you fall acutely ill. So if I see somebody who works with animals become acutely ill now, yes, you should, as a healthcare worker, entertain the possibility that maybe this person may have anthrax. Now, I'm not saying that every fever in an animal worker is anthrax, but this is a high-risk group now of people who can come down with anthrax.
Who are the others that are most vulnerable? What are the most vulnerable populations apart from those? And how do we protect ourselves? Do we get back into the COVID mode?
This has nothing to do with COVID.
Okay, so we don't need to wear masks and all of that?
If you work in a healthcare setting or you work with animals, yes, certainly you may need to, at this time, you may need to wear a mask. But what we are saying primarily is, from the perspective of people who work with animals, report sick animals, don't handle them. Wait for veterinary services to arrive. If you have a sick animal, don't slaughter them. Okay? If you slaughter an animal that you probably didn't know was ill and the blood does not clot, then just abandon post, inform veterinary officers, because blood from animals infected with anthrax, as our colleagues in the veterinary services have informed us, do not clot. That's a characteristic feature. And when you kill such animals, there's more bloating than you ordinarily will observe, and then the meat tends to deteriorate very quickly.
Okay, now let's quickly wrap this up, Doctor. The mental health of the Nigerian populace. We're just trying to recover from the effect of COVID, and then this. So what's your word to calm the nerves of Nigerians, especially looking at the impact of this on our mental health?
Well, I think Nigerians should focus on the correct information. Okay, we are communicating transparently so that people understand what is going on. Do not share sort of wrong information that may lead to panic, may lead to widespread change in behavior. That is not necessary. Okay, all we want people to do, act from an informed perspective. If you see animals that fall in the category that we've described, avoid them. That's the way to protect yourself. Hunters should not pick up dead animals or dying animals for sale. Okay, maybe if you live in any of these states, in Niger State or around, maybe you want to be more careful about your source of meat. Okay, you want to skip the bush meat that you like to buy for now until you can confirm.
Barbecue.
Skip bush meat,
Yes,
skip
you may want to skip pomo, for example.
Yeah.
The reason why we talk about skipping pomo, and of course it seems laughable, is anthrax can be found in the skin and in the hair of affected animals in large quantities. So it's not just eating it. If you work in the leather industry and you handle that skin, you're also at risk of disease. It's just because the bug is present in the skin and the air of the animal.
So very quickly, before we let you go, what systems are you putting in place now? I mean, there's port health facilities at the airports. Are they functional?
This has nothing to do with port health. We think
Okay.
I think anthrax may have come in with the movement of animals across the sub-region from places where cases previously were found. So the veterinary services are on high alert. Advisories have gone out to people all over in border states, in Niger State and environs. I know that veterinary services, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development are mobilizing doses of anthrax vaccine now to vaccinate, I think, farms within a 12-kilometer radius of this particular farm to prevent spread. There's effective vaccination. They are also encouraging routine uptake of vaccination by people who've with animal farms to make sure that their animals are protected against anthrax. From the human health side, colleagues in Niger State have listed, they have identified all those that are exposed and will start them on preventive treatment hoping that works in time to prevent cases. But we are also on high alert with protocols, with guidance. We are deploying a team to help out colleagues in Niger State with the response. And watching out for human cases should they arise.
Dr. Ifedayo Asetifa, we must say a big thank you to you. We wish we had more time to have you.
Thank you so much.
DG NCDC, Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Thank you for coming on Newsnight.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you for having me.